there.
For those who don't know, the match that Eric Hansen is talking about, the Chess Club and Scholastic Center in St. Louis held some really epic matches in this last week. One where Magnus Carlsen obliterated his opponent, 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬, but Wesley So falling behind left a lot on the table. Literally his blood in one game. If you want to Google Wesley So bleeds on clock, I bet you'll find our own Mike Klein's picture from on site there. So Wesley, yeah, he did perform well, and I agree with you. I think one of the things about Wesley people have said is, when it's going really well, it goes well. But does he have that mental toughness to carry him through some of those, some of those moments where you have to persevere? And I think he did that this last week versus Dominguez, and he may need to do that today. I want to give a shout out that we've already had three new subscribers to our channel: Freyo, Dr. Jerry, and then the initial one. I'm sorry I missed your username because Eric was saying something awesome, and I black out when Eric is saying awesome stuff. Eric, so what do we have? What awesome stuff do you have to say about this one? An interesting pawn structure here where white is facing toward the king side with the big chain. Black is going to organize the c5 move. This is one of those Caro-Kanns where you have a French pawn structure, but the bishop is outside of the normal. Normally it's a bad piece kind of locked in behind these pawns. Maybe give the fans some thoughts about what both sides are playing here.
Well, I do want to mention one thing Wesley said this past week is he's probably going to play the Berlin less in Blitz. It didn't go so well, so that's why we're seeing him play the Caro-Kann instead of some of his more solid options.
Interesting.
It didn't work too well, but then when he switched to the sharper options, it worked well. In this position, white's moves, it's all about positional control. Just maintaining the structure, this pawn chain from b2 to e5. That's going to enable white to have a lot of space to play behind those pawns. You're going to see options like at some point you might want to play f4, f5 under the right circumstances. Here, this is a simpler approach. Magnus is going to put a piece on d4. It's going to be a pretty quiet game. Some Caro-Kanns go pretty crazy, different ways of handling it. But I think it's going to be about white getting the f2 pawn to support the e5 pawn at some point, and then maybe pushing even further down the board, because otherwise black some people like to call these positions like a good French, that he's straight off the light squared bishop and he has counterplay against white's center.
So it's a balanced game right now, but this last move, queen d4, invites the shot knight f5 that maybe wins the bishop on e3. So if the queens come off the board right now, or even if this knight is traded for the bishop, who does that favor?
I think it favors black with a semi-open c-file and pressure against e5. e5 would be the juiciest target on the board. In this position, Magnus, I think he made the right choice to keep the queens on the board, but I don't think black has any issues here at all. It seems like he's played very logical chess. And
this last move, g6, is pretty nice as well, threatening bishop h6 and potentially more problems for the queen. Starting to like Wesley's chances in this second game here.
Well, he's got his pawns on the right color. That's one thing you can notice in terms of evaluating some of these positions.
Yep.
The end games, black's going to have the pressure against the dark square pawns. White, Magnus does have this knight on d4. I think Wesley's doing great here.
Yeah. Part of the reason Eric said that, everybody, that saying black has his pawns on the right color, he means they're on the opposite color square of the bishop, which typically gives your bishop even more open lines and even more mobility. So sometimes grandmasters make comments like that because they're so strong, and international masters, lowly international masters like myself, have to translate it for the rest of the world, Eric. But anyway, yeah, good stuff. And as you predicted, that e5 pawn falls. It was on the color of the dark square bishop, so Wesley was able to corral it. And now as we head into the endgame, though, with everything, with all the smoke clearing, I have a hard time believing Wesley can win this as black, despite that good opening of middle game, just because his king is so open.
No, that exchange didn't really benefit him. He doesn't have much room to work with here. And the problem is e6 is weak, g6 is weak, so he's offering to trade everything off. But, well, one thing, if the rooks get traded off, Danny, how do you evaluate queen endgames? Past pawns. And actually, black's e-pawn is the probably quickest one to the touchdown zone. So that's probably why Magnus kept the rooks on the board. You can harass the king a bit, but he didn't like his chances in that queen endgame just because the prospect of the weak back rank for white and black's past e-pawn, which can be ushered in pretty quickly with e5, e4, e3, scared him off. So Wesley's still doing well here. He's still the one pushing this endgame. It's an isolated pawn and also a passed pawn. And white's weak back rank means he can't really focus on it.
Okay. Well, now that the g2 pawn is a target, the problem for black is, can you really gang up on things on the second rank without your own king?
Right. That's the issue. The more pieces on the board, the harder it is to anticipate those checks and that counterplay. And that's why I think rook g1 by Magnus was quite a smart, practical decision. It looks very passive. A lot of people would just discount it, but keeping the queens on the board, keeping the rooks on the board adds an element where if black makes a mistake, he might find himself getting mated.
Right. Well, the position now, does Magnus have a chance at some point if this g2 pawn isn't under target to swing to c1? That's why you're saying that maybe black can even get mated if he's not careful.
That's right. Like that. You make some you play h3, give your king some space, and if he's
or go pawn grabbing, I guess. Magnus wants the a pawn, and now he's going to start pushing it. Okay.
Queen d5, by the way, is a great square to put the queen.
Absolutely, yeah.
It does everything. Protects e6, hits g2, and it's an outpost as well, so you're not going to blunder it.
So we have a bit of a race now where Magnus is slightly on the worst side of it, I guess, just because the e-pawn can be pushed, the a-pawn can't, with black holding the a5 square twice. But now if Wesley takes a4, are we going to see moves like rook c1 or rook b1?
Absolutely.
And white flip it? Yeah.
That's precisely why, you know, king h8 does not look right. Just something's up. I mean, maybe it doesn't lose, but I can hardly believe black is making progress.
And you have to love this move, queen g5, right? It hits g6 and protects g2, so suddenly this rook has been freed, everybody. Freedom. The rook will run to one of these open files and maybe get involved in the attack.
Oh, this is getting very dangerous, because now if a move like king g7, you got options like rook c1. You're defending the mate, so you have time to counterattack. Rook c1 or rook f1 or rook b1, b7 is not the idea. So rook c1 or rook f1 or rook e1. Those are the three rook moves I see here, all being useful. If he wants to play for a win, he should just go for mate here. But if he wants to liquidate, rook e1 should pick up the e5 pawn.
Yeah, if the e5 pawn falls for the a4 pawn, I mean, even there, white could still have mating chances. Probably, though, a trade will occur and black will be fine. But yeah, rook f1, I think, says Magnus wants to play for more than just a trade here, Eric. Is he threatening queen f6? I guess he was, so Wesley played queen d6.
Yeah, queen e7 as well, to give the rook also room to maneuver on the f file.
And this is where Magnus Carlsen is so tough, right? Certainly he didn't get the best opening. We liked Wesley So's Caro-Kann there. But after having an edge in the middle game, it doesn't look like Wesley was able to fully capitalize. And now, if anything, it feels like Magnus is about to be the one on the hunt.
For sure. The one good thing for Wesley is his queen on d6. It not only protects b8, but there's a threat of rook a1 check, king h2, and there's a discovered e4 move at his disposal. So the queen on d6 is really good at protecting g6 and covering a few key squares. But yeah, this looks super dangerous. I'm trying to find a win here for white, because black is very quick to come up with rook a1. And yeah, that move threatens queen c8 mate, but also protects a1. This feels like white should have something, but he's going to have to spend some of his 2.5 minutes to find that out. The players are playing pretty quickly this game for the
Shout out to 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬 Kesh for subscribing. Thank you for supporting chess and being here to watch the Speed Chess Championship. Okay, is queen f7 an issue? Okay, then we'll go back to rook a1, right? And then e4 check.
You end up getting mated, yeah.
So we could see a little bit of tickle here, back and forth between the queen and king. And as much as Magnus would like, as much as Magnus would like to play something like this, everybody just highlight Eric Hansen's line one more time. Black would get e4 check, and the tables would turn with white finding himself mated. So so Magnus taking a little bit of a think here, maybe assessing if that's really the case, or if he has any other chances. As he looks away, maybe somebody's cooking up something good in the kitchen, but likely Magnus is just going to repeat here. Okay, interesting stuff. Well, to start out, back to our game timer. Remind everybody we are only 15 minutes in here. Game 1 went quickly to the reigning world champion as he won with the black pieces, and in an opening that went terribly wrong for Wesley So. But here Wesley's played better for sure. I mean, he's definitely stopped the bleeding, getting an edge as black to start, a small edge at that, and with Magnus, I think, having to settle on a draw here, you just got to be happy you're not starting with 2 losses right now as Wesley, and you go back with the white pieces. Oh, look at that. I'm wrong. He's playing for a win. He plays queen f8 to guard the h6 square.
One of the problems there is Magnus spent so much time. Wesley was able to find an improvement on his original, idea of maybe settling for a draw. Queen f8 covers h6. Also, might prepare to play the move queen f4, which would put the pressure on white, covers white's escape square. So, yeah, I agree with his decision here, Danny. He's up a pawn, and Magnus is usually on the other side of this. So rook a1 check, or here and queen f4, and at least black is playing up a pawn. After rook f7, I don't see it.
Yeah, it's still very likely a draw, everybody. This rook ending, despite black having this extra pawn with the king being cut off on the 8th rank by the white rook. Expect this to end to a draw, but I agree, and you like the tenacity there from Wesley, right? Magnus Carlsen thinks he has a draw, and he says, not so fast. I'm going to push this one for a little while.
I mean, he's going to have to maximize every extra pawn he has today. You know, hope for mouse slips, hope for blunders, but try to have Magnus on the other end of the grind.
H4 is a nice move, right? And a small instructional point for our members at home, just that it holds the G5 square and prevents Wesley from doing what he might want to do on a move like King F2, G5, and you know it's probably a draw either way, but just a little instructional point for members on the analysis board here that you don't want your opponent to have all their pawns together and healthy. So Magnus sort of aggressively trying to hold back the black pawns, and I think that's going to make the draw even easier for white.
Yeah.
Here we go. The trade will happen.
He's right in time. King h6, rook takes f2. His king will be in time to defend it. Otherwise, yeah, could be some issues. But Wesley's playing this on. He's if it's going to be a draw, he's going to play it out.
Speak to that a little bit, because we know you have such a unique perspective from any of the hosts here, because you're one of the strongest online blitz players and bullet players, and so you've played both these guys. And what is it about? Is there something to the practical aspect, Eric, of working out your nerves? Right, trying to put yourself in a position where, even though Wesley, of course, knows this is a draw and he's not going to beat Magnus here, is he playing it out just so that